I'm interviewing women that I admire, respect, and I know that we can learn from. My role is to bring out their best practices, their routines, their habits, their thought processes, so that you and I can apply what we learn to improve our lives. Today we're talking to Linda Swindling. She is an executive consultant on negotiation. We're going to take a look back at her childhood because her path to success, I think, is very telling. She started as a babysitter and then went to newscasting and then a lawyer and now as a master negotiator. And the reason I think this is so important is because at some point, perhaps midlife, been there, done that, where we're going to need to reset and we might be a little lost, a little confused and like, what is my purpose in life? And if we go back to childhood and look, we can see those qualities just screaming out. And Linda does this just really well. And I thought it was just a great illustration to remind us. So when we get lost, we can kind of go back and try and get in sync with those qualities that really make us us. So let's meet Linda Swindling. Linda, you work with a lot of executives now and you're teaching them how to negotiate and other things, but the negotiation piece, when you go back to your childhood, was there evidence of you like, no, let me just stay up till just a few more minutes?
Oh, always.
Or like,
yeah, always had some sort of argument or why I need to watch TV or the rules didn't apply to me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because I became a babysitter like at a really early age, and I started doing that. I started, like, I've played that game, I know that game, and I kind of did it with the parents. So what I would do is I would actually bring my own toys, my own puzzles, my own crayons and stuff, and I'd have the babysitter bag. And the kids would say, well, can you just leave this game? And I'd say, oh, I'm sorry. I use this as my babysitter kit. But I tell you what, if you'll have me back, if you ask your parents to come back, I'll make sure I bring that toys just for you.
No, you didn't.
I so did.
Where did you learn that?
I think my parents. My mom always would send us in. She'd say, well, go ask, the butcher to carve up this or go. And she forced us to talk. And so we always had to talk. And my parents they came from a really small town. And so they came from a really small Texas town. They would talk to people wherever they met them. And they just taught us to talk to people. You don't know if you don't ask, right?
I mean, the thing of like bundling and it's a package deal and teasing a little bit. Well, you learned that?
Yeah, with my mom. And she'd say, well, what are you going to bring them? And I said, oh, I hadn't thought about it. So I had this little Mickey Mouse bag I would tote around. And then, we had a bedtime routine. And what I did was I copied what my parents did. So they would, they sang to us and they scratched our back and they told us a story. And so I did that. And I'd say, okay, good night, everyone, And it was so funny because people will pay you and they will treat you really nicely if you've got a service nobody else will do. So they would have like the babysitter's cabinet with a lock on the door. So all like my favorite snacks were in there. And they would call months in advance to find out when I was free, which night, because that's when they were going to buy the tickets, was the night that they could go to the play, was the night I was free. Is that crazy? So yeah, it just give good service, think a little bit more creatively and get that end user, that customer to really buy into what you're doing.
At one point, did you learn about these types of terms, business terms?
Not until, I went to law school and practiced law for 10 years and didn't really hear about those till after the fact. So I had a sales background a little bit from hotel sales and then didn't hear them really until I started working with a business coach and then went on and started speaking. And I really hadn't heard about them in law school.
Now when you go back to those babysitting days, so you were what?
You know what? I started really early, 11, 12. I was teaching dance at 10. It was so cute. And then, I taught dance and then danced and did all that. And then at 15, we snuck me into a restaurant before I was legal. And I was a hostess and finally was a waitress and then a front desk clerk. So that's kind of the background. So I saw how people reacted, especially when they're under stress. And that's the one thing. If you have a kid or you're saying, well, how important is it for my teenager to have a part-time job? It's huge because that taught me everything I need to know about conflict resolution, keeping people calm. Law school didn't teach you that. Business school does not teach you that. Having somebody who has been sitting there for 2 hours and you accidentally called somebody else in front of them, that's the person, that's where you learn those skills. Or you gave their room away and you're going to have to walk them to another hotel. That's where you learn how to deal with people.
Now back to your I'm still stuck on your babysitting.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have any microphone? I mean, were you?
Well, this is even more embarrassing. So when I was a little girl, even before the babysitting, I used to get lost intentionally in the supermarket, so they would say my name over the intercom.
Say my name.
We're paging Pat Byars. Your daughter Linda's up here. Pat Byars, please come to the front.
And did you say, Mom, I'm famous?
Here I am, Mom. Is that terrible? It's terrible. But yeah, the microphone, telling everybody I'll be the teacher. It's funny. You do these little things when you're kids that grow up and you say, oh, yeah, I guess I did do that when I was a little kid.
Well, when you played, let's say like play house or play, I don't know what you played. What did you play?
Well, no, we had dolls. Now, my mom didn't believe in having Barbie dolls, so we had Skipper or whatever, the friend that didn't have all the curves, because that's what normal people look like, is what she would always tell us. But no, we played dolls, but we played a lot of games where, I had a fort or a house, and my house was this tree, and if you used the right rules, you could come into my tree and visit me, and if not, you had to go sit in your tree. So there were lots of rules, yes, lots of games that we created that, my best friend Leslie and I would just hang out and we would say, okay, now then, what are we going to do at this playground? And you just develop your own little story or whatever. And we roller skated, a lot of roller skating.
Yes.
So that's what I did, yes.
Shoot the duck, baby.
Yeah, I'm telling you, yeah, right. But we could do it in our basement. We had a basement in St. Louis and we would just roller skate around. Isn't that fun?
Totally fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, then, were you in school? Were you really involved with ASB and all the leadership?
No, I was involved in church groups where I would become president a lot of times. But I did a lot of different things. I'm really interested in a lot of different things, like a lot of entrepreneurs. A lot of business owners have lots of different interests. So I would be in Future Business Leaders of America, but I didn't do that as much as maybe be in the choir. I was in the choir, I was in the musicals, I was, then I totally left that, played the cello too, and then went and danced a lot. And so it was just a smidge of a lot of different things.
Now, when did your negotiations show up? I mean, when you're babysitting, certainly, but when did that start? Did you start using it?
On the job, for sure. With clients, with customers who'd come into a restaurant or into a hotel. But where I saw it, where I went, aha, this works, was my very first, almost, right before I went to school in college. And I was talking to an advisor, and then I went and talked to the residential people, the Resident Hall Association. And they said, absolutely, we cannot get you in that dorm. And I said, oh, but I want to be on that waiting list because Stengel, has this other group, and this would be so centrally located. And I saw when I wasn't so gruff and mean, or even, just sit there on the side and say, okay, but I went ahead and asked. I was amazed at what
Making the ask.
You have to ask, yeah. What's the worst that they can say?
No.
And what do you have already? Nothing.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
So what's the hurt? So maybe you ask 3 times, you get 2 or 1. That's good. Never know.
When you were in college, how many times did you use that? I mean, did you use it to try and?
I used it all the time. I had one professor that I was a broadcast journalism major before law school.
Oh.
Yeah, great degree because it teaches you how to write tight, and you're on the TV and stuff. So that was really good. But he said, if my notes ever don't agree with the textbook, come see me. So I would have a low grade, and I would go in and I would highlight different sections, and I would say, look, your notes say this, the book says this, and he'd say, okay, I'll give you it. And I would see my grade go up to an A just by being able to negotiate with them. It was great. I did that with student groups I was in. I would bring in other people and I'd say, what's your need? What do you need in this? Well, we need our organization's name to be out. Great. What can you provide? Okay, terrific. We're going to do this together. So I brought people together and try to cover what they really needed to have happen and would be a win for them. And then we do things together.
So you're a mediator already.
Oh man, master negotiator. Put it all together and get everybody in. Yeah, absolutely. And it was all for positive. It was to build, right? So it wasn't to try to mend a relationship. It was just, what could we do to help each other move forward?
How did you decide to go into law school, and did you do that right after college, or what were your plans?
So I am a serial job seeker, I guess, or job holder. I did all sorts of jobs. I told you about a lot of them, but I danced. I thought I was going to be a dance teacher. I thought I was going to be a performer. And law school is kind of the last resort. So I worked an internship at a television station. I went, oh no, I can't do this job full time. I see what this would be like. You start work at 10 and you go to work until about 11 p.m. and if it bleeds, it leads. So basically, if it's a icky story, someone's killed somebody in a wreck, that's the story they lead with. So I had two things happen. One was a counselor said, Linda, in junior high, she said, if you ever can't do something, you could always go to law school. If you can't figure out something you could do, you can always go to law school because you read well, you understand it, and you seem to argue a lot. Right? So that was kind of, you always have a point.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. But what was more interesting was a teacher in high school didn't think I could be a lawyer in the mock trial team. She told me, no way, I'm not going to put you on there. You would never be able to do this. And so crazy me, I've kept that memory all that time, and I said, I'll show you.
Yeah.
I don't even think she ever knew I became a lawyer.
Well, she's going to know now.
Right, well, yeah, I don't even know if she's still alive, but isn't that funny when someone tells you no? Sometimes we go, well, I'll show you, even if it's going to make you miserable.
Definitely people that you and I, oh yeah?
Oh yeah, we'll see that, yeah. So those two kind of played in, and yeah, I did that for graduate school. I thought, well, even if I don't practice, it'll be a really good graduate degree.
And then after that, what did you become a lawyer?
I did. I clerked for a lot of people. I clerked for U.S. Attorney's Office in Lubbock, and I clerked for some different folks. And then I got out and I practiced for 10 years. And about year 5, different firms had layoffs. It was a hard time, but I had my own firm, my own practice, my name on the door before I was 30. So I had it, but I wasn't happy. And really, after I had my first child, I was like, oh, this is really, I can do it, but it's not lighting me up. And I hired a business coach. And we worked for a year, and we really grew my practice. And she said, okay, you ready? So there you go. And she said, but you're still not happy? And I said, no. And so we continued to work, and then that's what, I got a different career. I wrote a legal book for consultants with another author, Elaine Beek. And that's when I started getting into what I really love doing. So,
which is?
Well, I consult and I do a lot of speaking on things that I write. So I try to figure out communication, problems people are having, negotiation things, influence problems maybe, or situations that they want to upgrade. People want to influence better. They want to communicate better. And they're smart people. But a lot of times they just need just a different perspective, somebody else's perspective, or maybe many perspectives. And so that's what I do. How do you deal with complaining people? Well, you got to figure out why they're complaining.
So you're dealing more internally, corporate, and more C-suite?
Yeah, C-suite, and the people who report to the C-suite, those high potentials. The people that want to grow and go. But yeah, a lot of C-suite folks, smaller companies, the CEO, larger companies, the VPs. Yeah.
That's pretty cool to see how that lays out, the whole negotiating.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah, and a lot of them want to perform. They want to speak. They want to get in front of an audience. They want to be able to negotiate up front. And they just need somebody to say, this will help you, this won't. What you're doing right here isn't helping you.
What are some tips you can tell the women who are watching who are trying to negotiate better and that you see particularly for women that they struggle with?
Okay, so not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to be your friend. A lot of times it really is business. The other thing is, go ahead and ask. Okay, so what's the worst that can happen? It's that you do say no. So the big things are ask outrageously. The worst that can happen is people go, well, at least she's willing to ask.
Yeah.
And even if you don't get it, they see you as someone who wants to do more. The other thing is, lay it out as why it's important for them to give you this. What's in their best interest? Because if you know that what's in it for them, you're just going to be a superstar in their eyes. And probably the last one is figure out logical reasons why it makes sense to go in your way. People don't think logically. We get so emotional, oh, I deserve it. No, you deserved up to this point, and that's what they paid you for. So show people how you're going to build for the future. It's so important. There's one other thing I tell anybody, but especially women. You're going to make mistakes. You are going to do things wrong. Give yourself permission to fail. Bless it and move on. My company's called Journey On for a reason. I saw a quote by Ben Sweetland that was, success is not a destination, it's the journey on. We are so hard on ourselves. Stop being hard on yourself. Look around you. There are people who are a lot less capable than you are that have the job you want, that are doing the things you want. Go ahead and be okay with making mistakes.